Greetings and salutations! Welcome to the EzeeLinux Show. This is version 18.25, recorded on May the 4th, 2018. I'm Joe Collins. Glad you're here. We got lots to talk about this time around. We are going to take a very quick look at the latest Linux Mint. Linux Mint 19 hit today in beta, and it will be in beta for about a month. More about that coming up. First, let's talk about Microsoft acquiring GitHub for $7.5 billion. It's just an ungodly amount of money. Can you actually imagine $7.5 billion? Well, this is the story in The Verge, and I basically just put this up here to have something to look at. You do not need to have the link directly to this because I'm not going to quote from it. I'm just using it for this lovely picture that they have here about how Microsoft just loves GitHub. Now, there's been a lot of stuff going around lately about Microsoft. There has been speculation that Microsoft might buy Canonical, the company that distributes Ubuntu. That's been flying around. Of course, we've heard that Microsoft loves Linux. Microsoft shipped Azure Sphere, which is an operating system for IoT devices. That's Internet of Things, like toasters. That's what that's about. And, you know, everybody's talking about Microsoft just loving up on Linux and all this other stuff. Well, let me tell you what. I don't like Microsoft. I make absolutely no bones about that. I'm not saying that everybody that works for Microsoft is evil. That is absolutely not true. Anytime you have a large corporation, there are plenty of very nice, wonderful people that work there and believe in what they're doing and all that happy jazz. But corporations in general is something that I don't like, and the larger they are and the stupider they are, the worse it gets. Microsoft has pretty much killed everything that they have touched. Just look at Mojang and Skype and Nokia. That's a good one right there. And if you want to learn more about that, kids, you can always look it up on the big Google there. Just type it in and lots of stuff will come up. So they have acquired GitHub. What is GitHub, you may be asking if you are new to the world of Linux and open source? Well, GitHub is an online repository that people like me, who write little scripts and pieces of software, can actually put our little works of art up there on this platform, and other people can find it, and we can put download links to it, and you can actually get a hold of it. It's really groovy. And it's not just for little bitty projects like that. It's also for big projects like the entire Ubuntu. Everything they write is on GitHub. This is where a lot of open source projects are developed. You download a little program, put it in your PC that you're developing on called Git, and you can sync yourself up to your online repositories. So this is basically Microsoft now owns pretty much all of open source, where all of the open source code is stored. This does not bode well for the future, as far as I'm concerned. I don't have a problem with Microsoft wanting to embrace the open source community. They are threatened by open source, flat out. I mean, Windows is irrelevant. It is an operating system that is on its way out. It's dying. It is only dominant because it is entrenched technology that's been there forever. Moving forward, Windows is not the way to go, especially in enterprise. In enterprise, people want open source. They want Linux or Unix or something that they can mold and shape and make their own. They don't want to have to deal with Windows, vendor lock-in, bloat, all of the things that are a problem, vulnerability, insecurity, the entire multi-billion-dollar racket, which is the antivirus industry, designed to patch an operating system which is shipped from the manufacturer with so many holes in it, it makes colanders feel bad about themselves. Okay, that's what Windows is. So, them buying GitHub's not a good thing. And there's not a damn thing that any of us can do about it. I mean, really, honestly, if Microsoft decided tomorrow that they wanted to buy Canonical, Canonical's looking for money. They're hungry for investments. Mark Shuttleworth wants an IPO, wants to get that all going. If that happened, there's not a thing we can do about it. But there is a wonderful thing about the open source community. I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to move on to another topic. And that is, there's always choice. So if Ubuntu goes away tomorrow, guess what, gang? There's Debian, or Manjaro, or Arch, or OpenSUSE. There's all kinds of ways that we can go. It might not be your preferred platform at the moment, but if for some reason you don't like what one corporation is doing that's distributing a Linux distribution, no problem. Just pick up your marbles and go somewhere else. Speaking of GitHub, next thing I want to talk about in this here video is XPT 2.3, which is on GitHub, and you can download it from GitHub, and you can install it on your very own Ubuntu or Linux Mint machine and use it to back up all of your personal data to an external hard drive. I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail about that. We've talked about XBT a lot on this channel. I just wanted to let you know that 2.3 was available. What's in 2.3? Well, it's a bunch of little fixes, little changes, and it's also one thing that has changed now is that instead of showing you the mostly meaningless progress status output while it's backing up files, now it actually shows you what files it's backing up, and it gives you real world information about those files going across. So as you're backing things up, you can actually sit and watch the thing scroll up the screen, everything that it's working on. When the program is done and it goes into the part where it's syncing the drives, it clears the screen, so that output goes poof. For those of you who are worried about people seeing your files, it just goes away. One of the original reasons that I had it doing just the generic status from rsync was I was afraid that people might object to the fact that basically all of their personal file names are scrolling up the screen. But when it's done, it gets rid of it, and when you exit the terminal, that output goes poof. It's not logged anywhere, it's not kept, it's just shown on a screen, okay? Just want to put that out there. So for those of you who are using XBT already, you definitely want to go ahead and get this latest script. All you got to do, if you have it installed the way the installer does, is just to copy the new XBT from the XBT 2.3 installation files directory, which you will unzip from the archive that you download off of GitHub, and put that over top of the one that's already in user/bin/local. So that would be /usr/local/bin. And get that straight. That's where XBT goes, and that's where programs like XBT should be stored on your system. That's where binaries and scripts that are not maintained by the package manager but are available to all users on the system, that's where they're stored. And so that's where it goes. Once again, it is /usr/local/bin, and you can read the documentation in XBT and it will explain more. So there you go. By the way, thank you to everybody who has given the great feedback for XBT and the support that it's gotten. I know there's a lot of people that are following it on GitHub, even though Microsoft now owns GitHub. Hopefully we can keep that going for a while at least. We'll run it until it becomes distasteful or it doesn't work anymore, and then we'll go to GitLab, I guess. But anyway, thank you to everybody who has checked out that program. I really do appreciate it. Now, where can you get it if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about? Go to the EzeeLinux.com page and click on Bash Scripts. It's right there up top. See that? And by the way, the EzeeLinux URL is in the description for this video. Just go look for it, click on that, click on Bash Scripts, scroll down past CYA and look at XBT. There's also some other goodies up here that you can check out. XBT and CYA are the biggest ones here. CYA is a program that takes snapshots of your running Linux system and allows you to roll back, sort of like System Restore a la Windows. So if you want to check that out, you can, and there you go. Next thing to talk about, Linux Mint 19 Terra XFCE beta release here. This is what the latest one is. Well, the Cinnamon release has actually been out for a little bit longer. I think they're going to talk about this one first. Yeah, that's right. We've got Mate, and if we keep scrolling down the page here on the post here at the Linux Mint blog, we have the Cinnamon beta release. I actually got a tip from a follower of the EzeeLinux project, John Spoonamar, who told me that I could get it off of an FTP link. So I downloaded it last night, and I installed it on this here computer in a virtual machine, and this is what it looks like. Now, I haven't had a whole bunch of time to poke around and take a look at it, but there are some interesting things. First of all, right off the bat, you see that the welcome screen is a different deal than it was before. It's now divided up into more useful information. So, like, here's your first steps. And the first thing that it wants you to do is it wants you to set up snapshots, which is time shift. So we'll go ahead and open that up so you can see it. Show you what that looks like. It's time shift. I've shown this in past videos before. I'm not going to set this up on a virtual machine, but there it is. So that will start taking snapshots of your system on an automated basis, and then you can use the restore function to get yourself back to where you were. If you download a program that doesn't work, messes up your system, install some drivers that don't work, something like that, that's what it's going to do. CYA does the same thing, which I just showed you. So it's the same kind of program. But the nice thing about Linux Mint and the time shift program is the fact that it's baked into the system. And so it's on your USB stick. So if you have to try and fix your, you want to do a recovery from a live disk, live boot up, you can do that really easy. No problems there. And it's all graphic based. So I've done videos about it. We'll probably do some more here. Next thing it encourages you to do is go to the driver manager. We can install drivers. Now I have some manually installed drivers in here since this is a virtual machine. And no, it does not look like this when you first boot it up. I always go for the Mint Y Dark theme in Linux Mint, and I've adjusted the fonts. I also make the panel a little bit bigger, and the panel will intelligently hide. I always go through and do kind of the settings that I always do. So there's the driver manager. It looks pretty much the same. And then we've got the update manager. Now I've already set this up. We have a new opening page to the update manager. Those of you who have installed Linux Mint in the past will know that when you open up the update manager, it usually asks you what security level you'd like to be at. Well, they don't do that anymore. Excuse me. What they do now is they just tell you a little bit about update manager. You click OK, and it goes off and does its thing. The first thing that it's going to ask you to do is to set up snapshots. And as you can see under edit, here we go. They're right there. Snapshots. And once again, that will bring us to time shift. Also, we have software sources, which is where you set up your mirrors. Now, in the last video, I was talking about how the mirrors for James Madison University were dropped. Well, I got an email today from none other than Clem Lefebvre himself, who is the head of the Linux Mint project. I guess he is root@linuxmint.com. Which would make perfect sense because that's who I sent it to. And he was kind enough to say that sometimes they will drop a mirror from their list if it doesn't get updated. But in this particular case, he didn't know exactly why. So now guess what? James Madison University is going to be added back to the mirrors for Linux Mint. That's from Clem Lefebvre. I also invited Clem Lefebvre to do a video with me. If Clem, seriously, he won't be watching this, but do a video with me sometime. In my response, I said, thank you, and there's an open invitation. Clem does not do any podcasts rarely talks to the community. And Clem, we love you around here. Come talk to us. Please be a part of that. And if you want to have Clem on a video with me, why don't you go bug him? The email address is root@linuxmint.com. That's how you can get to Clem Lefebvre. Tell him you want to hear him talk to me here on this YouTube channel as part of the EzeeLinux thing. So let's see how that works. I wonder how many people will actually do that. So, this is what software sources looks like. And since the last video, I found that the EvoWise folks who have these really broadband servers for Ubuntu and Linux Mint in the United States, they have New York mirrors as well. So I had it set to grab packages from out in LA, and now I realized, there's NY mirrors. Just look for on the Ubuntu list, just look for NY mirrors, and you can find those if you're on the East Coast of the United States. Very fast indeed. So even though I was complaining about JMU and we got JMU back on the list, I don't think I'm going to be using them for a while. Anyway, I'm running on. So we can do our update. Let's do an update and see if anything looks different. I doubt it does. It's going to be exactly the same. It's going to work and act the same way it did before. And then when this is done, I'll show you the kernel tool. So this is the generic settings that it came with. They don't give you a place now where you can hold back certain packages and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and let that install itself. My obsession with updating. You know how that is. And by the way, if you hear people yelling in the background, that's my idiot daughter who is out front talking to her friends on the front porch. She told me she'd be quiet. She's 16. This is quiet for a 16-year-old. I got a bunch of them out there on my front lawn. Okay, so we have those installed. Come on, hurry up and reset so I can go over here and show people that the Linux kernels are still pretty much the same. Except now you'll see that we only have the 415 series because this is based on Ubuntu 19. So let's see, what else do we have here? We've got system settings here, and you can set up your system. This looks pretty much the same as it did before. Not a huge bunch of changes in here. Didn't expect any either. And then we have Software Manager. Now, this is Emily trying to sneak in and be quiet because she knows I'm recording a video. You get a very real-world look at my life in this video today. And she's sneaking behind me right now, so that's the noise that you're hearing. Software Manager still here. I am assuming that now when you install stuff from Flatpaks, that it's going to go along with the theme. They said that they would do that. I have not tried that yet, but we will wait and see. Remember, this is a very, very early beta, ladies and gentlemen. It's like only been out for a day or two. So the big changes are under the hood. First of all, when you tell Linux Mint to automatically install where it just picks the first hard drive, which is SDA, and then it partitions that drive. Now it creates one big happy ext4 partition, and it creates a swap file. We do no longer have swap partitions being created by default in Linux Mint. And that is following along with what Ubuntu has done since, 1704 they started doing that. And so in 1804 it's exactly the same deal. And I actually prefer that. I think that that makes more sense, especially with SSDs, where you don't really need to have a dedicated swap partition. And the other thing about a swap file is the fact that with a swap file you can resize it. So if you have a system that actually uses some swap for whatever reason, your system will use a little bit of swap no matter how much memory you have, because that's just the kernel's scratch space in there. But if your system uses swap and you need to make that bigger, you can. You just recreate the file for it. So it's right there. Right there, swap file. And other than that, there's not much more to talk about here with Linux Mint 19. It is brand new. It is based on Ubuntu 1804. My experience with Ubuntu 1804 has been, from a stability point of view, just absolutely unbelievable. It has been the most stable Linux that I have installed on the hardware that I have. Now, I know some other people may have had some problems with Ubuntu 1804 on their hardware, but for me, on the junk that I have, it's been like it isn't there. It just runs all the time. I have it on two machines, and we're talking about vanilla Ubuntu 1804 with the Ubuntu spin of the GNOME desktop. And it has become my daily driver, just simply because it has been so terribly stable. And the same thing goes for Cindy's computer, who's my fiance. Her computer is running Ubuntu, and she doesn't want me to touch it because it's working so well. So I'm going to make a big, bold assumption here, and I'm going to say that Linux Mint 19 is probably going to be that kind of stable, especially since they have updated the Cinnamon desktop and done so much with the system. So should be really fun to look forward to see how this develops. And when it is officially released, I plan on doing a video which will give you a guide to installing it from beginning to end and getting everything set up the same way that I did for Ubuntu, or rather for Linux Mint 18. When I almost said Ubuntu 18.04, I haven't done a video like that for that. But I did do one for Linux Mint 18 when it came along, and it's been one of the most popular videos I have on my channel, is that installation video. So I'm going to kind of reprise that, probably make it a little shorter and a little simpler this time around, because we have moved on since Linux Mint 18 came along. Linux Mint 18 was based on Ubuntu 16.04, and you had to do a little bit more tweaking. These days, it just sort of slides right in. Linux is getting better and better all the time. So we will definitely revisit Linux Mint 19. It looks pretty much the same. And I don't know why, but for some reason or the other, this wallpaper in the background's not scaling properly. I just noticed that. So this is what the background's supposed to look like. So if we go in here to desktop background, this is the default desktop background right there. I change it. Let's see if it'll fix it. Yep, it did. So yeah, that's kind of, well, there you go. That's what it looks like. VirtualBox going a little crazy, and it is new. Okay, let's move on to the last thing that we're going to talk about in this here video. As soon as I get this to release, and let me go down to the next screen on my Ubuntu GNOME session that I'm recording this on. I want to talk about this little box right here, and it actually kind of plays in with computers, because on the back of this box there are inputs and outputs for 3.5-inch stereo phone jacks. And so therefore you could conceivably take this little box and you could put it between the output of your sound card analog to speakers that you're driving, correct? So if you have a setup like that, then it would be kind of cool to have this thing. It says it's a stereo program limiter, which basically what I thought it was a compressor or an automatic gain control or automatic level control. So what would happen is with a device such as that is that it would actually turn things down that were too loud and turn things up that were too soft. And this sells for about $63 US. You can see that up there in the corner. I'm just looking at the Amazon.com ad because they are on Amazon. I bought one of these. Complete, total, absolute piece of trash. Don't even go near this thing. It is not an automatic gain control. It is not an automatic level control of any kind. What it is a limiter, which means that it reacts very quickly to anything louder than where the threshold is set. And if you have any blinking on the little gain control LED on the front, you can't see it in this picture, but there's a gain control on the front, little LED here. Let's see if we can switch pictures. No, I don't care about that because that's a bunch of crap anyway. So that's what the front looks like. And there's a little LED that I'm not seeing in this particular picture for some reason. It's over here on the left-hand side that it blinks. This must be an older version or a newer version than the one I got. And it blinks. And when it blinks, it's basically tearing the audio up. It's really sounds horrible. It sounds, in other words, instead of turning things down nicely so that they don't sound distorted and way loud, what this thing does is it distorts it worse. The actual sound volume doesn't get any louder, but it sounds like everything is being turned up too loud. So, total, complete, absolute piece of garbage. Do not buy one of these things. I was very disappointed. And they have a bunch of reviews here on Amazon. You can see it's got what up there. It's like 3.5 stars or something like that. And some of the people on there say it sounds horrible, and some of the people on there say it sounded great. So I read the reviews and I thought to myself, well, the people who say it sounds horrible don't know how to set it up. Well, I come out of broadcasting. I know what a compressor does. I know what audio processing is. So I'm thinking to myself, this might be a fun little box to have around. The people who said it sounded awful were right, and the people who say it sounds great are idiots on here. So I don't know. Don't buy this thing. Made by a company called Rolls. It's an SL33B. Stay away from it. Piece of trash. I I just had to put that out there. I've not, you buy things every now and again and you go, oh, okay, this isn't the greatest thing in the world, but boy, let me tell you what, this thing, it doesn't do what it says it's going to do on the box. On the box, it says that that's what it's for, is to ride the levels for your TV or your sound system in your church or whatever the deal. No. Much better off to go buy like a DBX compressor or something like that, even though they are fiddly, and do that. Which the really sad thing about this is that there's a big need for a box like this. I mean, it wouldn't be terribly hard to design a little box that had some automatic level control on it, that sort of just real gently turn things up and down when they needed to be. Maybe a peak limiter to keep things from distorting, and try and be very invisible. And that would be a wonderful thing to have, like on your big AV system for your TV when you're trying to watch the movies that people are whispering and then big explosions go off in the background and that sort of thing. So there's a big need for something like this. And a few companies over the last, I'd say, 10 or 15 years I've seen these little boxes come out. And the ones, they're just always horrible. They don't do what they're supposed to do. So that's kind of sad that this one is not one of them. If anybody knows of anything like that, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Well, gee, this was fun. Thanks for hanging out with me for a while and talking a little bit about Linuxy stuff. Hopefully we'll have some more about Linux Mint 19 coming up here real soon. I'm going to kind of let it get tested out in beta before I do too much more commenting on it. Did want to let you guys know that it is out there. And, before we end the video, let me say, because everybody's going to ask, well, I'm running Linux Mint 18.3 and I really like it. Do I need to upgrade to Linux Mint 19 when it comes along? No. You do not have to do that. Linux Mint 18.3 is going to be supported for the next 3 years, and it will run very happily. Now, if you buy a new computer, or if you have a problem with Linux Mint 18.3, in other words, that the Linux Mint 19 edition solves a problem for you because it will fix a bug or something like that, then yeah, you might want to consider upgrading. And when they went from a Linux Mint 17.3 to Linux Mint 18, they had an upgrade procedure. I'm sure they will have one that goes from 18.3 to 19. We'll see how that goes, and we'll talk about it when it comes along. So, please be sure to give EzeeLinux a like on Facebook. Also, check it online at EzeeLinux.com. And check out FreedomPenguin.com for more content about Linux from a lot of creators such as myself, Matt Hartley included, who is the head of that project and puts up some really cool content over there at FreedomPenguin.com. Very nice friend of the EzeeLinux project for sure. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for watching.